one of the things we learned from the class was that I wasn't to punish Alexa's kids and she wasn't to punish my kids. We learned to set up rules, and the rules, we sat down with the kids to help make up this list of rules and then determine a punishment if each of the rules were broke. And we found that the kids were more severe with the punishment than we were. So we had to lessen those back because the crime, or the punishment and the crime had to go together, and they weren't with the way the kids established it, so we had to lessen them up. But it was a very effective tool because now this list was on the refrigerator, and if Zachary broke a rule, all I had to do to punish him was point at the refrigerator. It wasn't like the punishment was coming from me since he wasn't my biological son. And Alexa the same, she could point to the refrigerator if one of my kids was to violate a rule.
We had my daughter who was finishing her last year of high school, and then my son close enough to college where he would come home for the weekends. So I didn't have much contact with his girls, but the other thing the door that opened up for us is that my job then was just to love. If I didn't have to discipline or bring up conflict, the door was wide open for me to just love his girls, and that I really found that to be really helpful.
It was helpful. My oldest daughter, when she came back from college, she was too old for rules. She didn't think the rules applied to her, and when the rules applied to everybody, and if she was going to live there, she had to go by the rules. So she chose to move out, which was very beneficial to her because she wasn't out too long when she called me and says, "Dad, I now know why you used to get upset at me when I would leave the lights on. I got my first electric bill." So it's a good learning lesson for her.
Of course, being a blended family is a work in progress. And one of the things that we found out is that we had, I think, maybe, 10 or 12 rules on the refrigerator. We wanted to make the rules attainable and not too stringent. And so sometimes something would come up that we hadn't thought about. So we both agreed that if the rule wasn't on the refrigerator with the consequence, then there was no punishment or discipline to be enforced, but then
we'd add the rule.
We'd add the rule. And then we also found it important with the consequences to find out what our kids' currency was. So for my daughter being 17 and being in college, it was her cell phone. So, she was very attached to, but when it came time and when we need to enforce things, she would reluctantly hand it over, but since it was already pre-discussed and on the refrigerator, I imagine that there was probably less drama than there could have been.
Because you could see as the cell phone was coming out to hand over, it wasn't coming very fast. It was a slow, oh, here it is. But they followed the rules.